Strategic Dream: Putting the Power of Your Subconscious Mind to Work by Joseph Murphy. Reach new levels of career success using the power of your subconscious mind. Chapter 8: Conquering Fear. When faced with abnormal fear, place your attention on the thing immediately desired. Get absorbed and engrossed in your desire. This attitude will give you confidence and lift your spirits. The infinite power of your subconscious mind is moving on your behalf. It cannot fail. Therefore, peace and assurance are yours. The fear of failure itself creates the experience of failure. Most of us worry about problems that develop in our work, in our lives, and as noted in previous chapter, we can learn to cope with it. However, there are times when problems seem too burdensome and we just cannot face them. Fear has replaced confidence in our subconscious minds. Fear is the most extensive of all the morbid mental conditions that reflect themselves so disastrously in the human system. It has many degrees or graduations, from the state of extreme alarm, fright, or terror, down to the slightest shade of apprehension or impending evil. But all along the line, it is the same thing, a paralyzing impression upon the centers of life, which can produce, through the agency of the nervous system, a vast variety morbid symptoms in every tissue of the body. Fear is like carbonic acid gas pumped into one's atmosphere. It causes mental, moral, and spiritual asphyxiation and sometimes death. Death to energy, death to tissue, and death to all growth. Countless people suffer from the dread of some implementing evil. It haunts them even in their happiest moments. Their happiness is poisoned with it so that they never take much pleasure or comfort in anything. It is the ghost at the banquet, the skeleton in the closet. It is ingrained into their lives and emphasized in their excessive timidity, their shrinking, and their self-conscious bearing. We often fear that decision we make on the job will result in failure, criticism from the boss, demotion, or even termination. This can lead to headaches, unclairs, and emotional problems. Fear is one of the greatest causes of misery on the job, failure to advance in one's careers, and even get fired. Fear can dominate your life. Worry, anxiety, anger, jealousy, and timidity are early symptoms of fear. Unless they are identified and dealt with, they will metamize into fear. Fear is a major cause of unhappiness and inefficiency, and has made more people cowards and failures, and forced more of them into mediocrity than anything else. All work done when one is suffering from a sense of fear or forbidding has little efficiency. Fear strangles originality, daring, boldness. It kills individuality and weakness all the mental processes. Great things are never done under a sense of fear of some impending danger. Fear always indicates weaknesses. The presence of cowardice is a slaughter of years, a sacrificer of happiness and ambitions, and ruiner of careers. Fear depresses normal mental action and renders one incapable of acting wisely in an emergency, for no one can think clearly and act wisely when paralyzed by fear. When you become melancholy and discouraged about your affairs, when you are filled with fear that you are going to fail and are haunted by the specter of poverty and a suffering family, before you realize it, you attract the very things you dread. There is no need to fear. Tell this to yourself over and over again. Gradually, your subconscious will accept it, and your subconscious will believe it, because you believe it in your conscious, reasoning mind. Whatever your conscious mind really believes, your subconscious will dramatize and bring to manifestation. Do not vacillate or equivocate your subconscious mind knows when you are sincere. It knows when you really believe. Then it will respond. If instead of giving up to fear, you persist in keeping prosperity in mind, assume a hopeful, optimistic attitude, and conduct your business in a systematic, economical, far sighted manner. Actual failure will be comparatively rare. Change your thoughts from fear to faith. We have the capacity to easily destroy fear by simply changing the thought. Fear depresses, suppresses, strangles. If it is indulged in, it will change a positive, creative mental attitude into a non productive, negative one. And this is fatal to achievement. The effect of fear, especially where the fear thought has become habitual, it's to dry up the very source of life. Faith that replaces fear has just the opposite effect upon the body and brain. It enlarges, opens up to nature, gives abundant life to the cells, and increases the brain power. Fear wreaks terrible havoc with the imagination, which pictures all sorts of desired things. Faith is its perfect antidote. For while fear sees only the darkness and the shadows, faith sees the silver lining, the sun behind the clouds. Fear looks down and expects the worst. Faith looks up and anticipates the best. Fear is pessimistic, faith is optimistic. Fear always predicts failure. Faith predicts success. There can be no fear of poverty or failure when the mind is dominated by faith. Doubt cannot exist in its presence. It is above all adversity. Andrew L. was a highly talented violinist. He was the best violinist in his high school orchestra, and his teacher encouraged him to pursue a concert career. Andrew had no problem playing his best in an orchestra and playing solo to a small audience. Then, when the school orchestra was awarded the honor of performing at Beethoven Violin Concerto at a large concert hall, Andrew was chosen to play the violin solo. He performed beautifully in the rehearsal, but on the night of the concert, when he faced an auditorium filled to capacity, Andrew froze. He was so consumed with fear that he could not play and had to be escorted off the stage. From that moment on, Andrew refused to play. He chose to pursue another career, but always dreamed of living a life of music. Could Andrew's musical career have been salvaged? Of course it could have. Other men and women have encouraged stage fright to become great actors, musicians, singers, or orators. They refused to let one or even several defeats stop them. They had faith in themselves. A powerful faith is a great asset because it never frets. It sees beyond the temporary annoyance, the discord, the trouble. It sees the sun behind the cloud. It knows things will come out right because it sees the goal that the eye cannot see. Overcoming fear. In setting about the overcoming of fear, we must first understand what it is we fear. It is always something that has not yet happened. It is non existent. Trouble is an imaginary something that we think of and we frighten us with its possibility. Most people are afraid to walk on a narrow place high above the ground. In that same narrow space were marked on the floor or room, they could keep within it perfectly and never think of losing their balance. The most dangerous thing about walking in such a place is the fear of falling. Steady headed people are simply fearless. They do not allow the thought of possible danger to overcome them. They keep their physical powers under perfect control. An acrobat has only conquered fear to perform most of the fears that astound spectators. Take a very common fear, that of losing one's job. The people who make their lives miserable worry about this possible misfortune, have not lost their jobs. They are suffering nothing. There is no danger of want. The present situation is therefore satisfactory. If dismissal comes, it is then too late to worry about it coming, and all previous worrying will have been pure waste, doing no good, but rather weakening one of for the necessary struggle to get placed again. The thing worry about then will tend to be that another place will not be found. If a place is found, all the worrying will again have been useless. Under no circumstance can the worrying be justified by the situations at any particular time. Its object is always an imaginary situation of the future. In overcoming your various fears, follow each one out of its own logical conclusion and convince yourself that at the present moment the things you fear do not exist outside your imagination. Whether they ever come to pass in the future or not, you fear is a waste of time, energy, and actual bodily and mental strength. Quit worrying just as you will quit eating or drinking something you felt sure you had caused you pain in the past. If you must worry about something, worry about it. The terrible effects of worrying. It may help you to a cure. If the fear of personal failure, instead of thinking how little and weak you are, how ill prepared for the great task, and how sure you are to fail, think how strong and competent you are, how you are successfully done similar tasks, and how you are going to utilize all your past experiences and rise to this present occasion. Do the task triumphantly and be ready for a bigger one. It is an attitude such as this, whether consciously assumed or not, that carries one to a higher and yet higher places. The same principle of crowding out the fear by your buoyant, hopeful, confident thought can be applied to all many kinds of fear that daily and hourly besets us. Just as fear can debilitate you, the act of overcoming fear can prod you to great achievement. One rainy and windy day, a long legged medical student was worrying. He had a race to run, and fear had turned him pale. He would be described later as looking like a man going to the electric chair or like a man being tortured. His coach had the same fears about the weather, but kept them to himself as they sat opposite each other of the rain. The runner feared that the wind, which had picked up, would add critical 1 second to each of his 4 laps. The coach knew the damage that kind of doubt could do to an athlete, so he assured the runner that yes, he had the legs to do what he had to do. That is, which the proper motivation with a good reason for wanting to do it. He told the fearful runner that his mind could overcome any adversity, and he had knew a great athlete in Ireland who won those race without training or proper food, just the will to run. And that, the coach asked, it is where you only is this where your only chance? The runner would later say that he had needed the coach to tell him he could do it. He just needed to hear that booming voice say what he helped was his inner truth, that he could meet his greatest of challenges despite conditions. The coach Fritz Stampel would later write that a runner's greatest asset, apart from fitness, is a cool and calculating brain aligned to confidence and courage. He should know he had just given Roger Bannister the courage to break the 4 minute mile. Take charge of your mind. We must learn to establish control over our thoughts, feelings, and responses. We must not let fear make decisions for us. We must take charge and say to fear, I am the master. I am going to order my thoughts around. I am not afraid to make this decision. Tell your mind what you give attention to. Then you'll be like an employer ordering employees to execute his or her instructions. You must take charge of your own mind. not permit others to govern it for you. Creed, dogma, traditions, superstition, fear, and ignorance rule the mind of an average person. The greatest desert in the world is not the Sahara, it is in the mind of an average person. Too many people do not own their own minds. They make no effort to think to themselves. They let their minds be ruled over by strong minded family members at home or governed by the opinion of their bosses or strong minded coworkers on the job. Do not let this happen to you. Build up the power of your subconscious mind to resist domination by others and assert your ability to control your own destiny. Examine your fears. The head of sales for a major multinational corporation confided that when he first began working as a salesperson, he had to walk around the block 5 or 6 times before he could get up the nerve to call on a customer. His superior was both very experienced and very perceptive. One day she said to him, "Don't be afraid of the monster hiding behind the door. There is no monster. You are the victim of a false belief." The superior went on to tell him that whenever she felt the first stirring of a fear, she stood up to it. She stared it in the face, looked it straight in the eyes. When she did that, she always found that her fear faded and shrank into insignificance. Sarah's M's boss, Anthony, was a tyrant. She constantly micromanaged the work of all the subordinates. She was quick to criticize and never praised, and even acknowledged good work. Sarah dreaded to go to work and literally trembled when Anthony came close to her workspace. She noticed that Rebecca, a co-worker, never seemed fazed by Agnes' diatribes. Sarah asked her how she could manage, how could how she could remain so sincere under such conditions. Rebecca said, "When I first came here, I was terrified by Agni and was about to quit, but I needed the job. I decided that not Angie's or anybody else could ruin my life unless I let them. I realized that the only person who could make me miserable was me. If I let Agni make me feel inferior, I will be inferior. So when she betrayed me, I let it go in one ear and out of the other. I black out her negativity and concentrate on the good things in my life. I just nod my head and say, 'Yes, ma'am,' and go on with my work. Try it. It won't happen immediately, but after a while, you'll be able to let Agni ranting bounce off you with no effect." Sarah followed Rebecca's advice. Although the work environment had not changed, her perception of it and her reaction to it made the job more tolerable. Inspiration will bring victory from defeat. Perhaps the past has been bitter disappointing to you. It looking in over, you may feel that you may have been a failure, or at best have been plodding along in mediocrity. You may not have succeeded in the particular things you expected to do. You may have lost money when you planned to make it, or you may have lost friends and relatives who were very dear to you. You may have lost your business, and even your home may have been wrenched from you because you could not pay the mortgage on it, or because of sickness and consequent inability to work. A serious accident may have apparently robbed you from of your power. The new year may present a very discouraging outlook to you. Yet, in spite of all of these misfortunes, if you refuse to be conquered, victory is awaiting you further along the road. There is no need to feel inferior if you lose courage and are afraid to face the world just because you have made a mistake or a slip, because your business has failed, because your poverty has been swept away by some general disaster, or because of other trouble impossible for you to have averted. This is the test of you're discouraged. How much is there left in you after you have lost everything outside of yourself? If you lie down now, throw up your hands and acknowledge yourself bested, there is not much in you. But if you, with heart undated, the face turned forward, you refuse to give up or to lose faith in yourself. If you scorn to beat a retreat, you will show you are bigger than your loss, greater than your burdens, and larger than any defeat. You may say that you have failed too often, that there is no use in trying, that it's impossible for you to succeed, and that you have fallen too often, even if to attempt to get on your feet again. Nonsense. There is no failure for a person whose spirit is unconquered. No matter how late the hour or how many are repeating your failures, success is still possible. Time and again in the history of our daily lives, chronicled in our newspapers, recorded in biographies, and exhibited before our eyes, we see men and women redeeming past failures, rising up out of the stupor or discouragement, and boldly turning face forward once again. If you are made of the stuff that wins, if you have grit and nerve in you, your misfortunes, losses, and defeats will call them out and make you all the stronger. It is defeat, said Rev. Henry Ward Beecher, that turns bone to flint and gristle the muscle and makes us invisible. One must come up again and again and wrest triumph from defeat. That is the secret of success of every brave and noble life that has ever lived. How many times we come into a crisis in life when some obstacles confront us that we think will be a terrible calamity and will perhaps ruin us if we cannot avoid it. We fear that our ambitions will be thwarted and our lives perhaps will be wrecked. The dreads of the shocks that would think will overwhelm us and come nearer and nearer to it, without any possibility and averting it, sometimes frightful. Some people get along beautifully for half a lifetime, perhaps while everything goes smoothly, while they are accumulating properties and gaining friends and reputation, the characters seem to be strong and well balanced. But the moment trouble comes, a failure in business, a panic, or a great crisis in which they lose their all, they are overwhelmed. They despair, lose heart, courage, faith, and hope, and power to try again. Everything. Fear seeps down into their subconscious mind and dominates their personality. Let everything else go if you must, but never lose your grip on yourself. Do not succumb to fear. Replace it with hope. Cling to it with all your might. You are much greater than any material failure that can come to you. That it will sacredly be mentioned in your biography. It will be regarded as a mere incident in your career, inconvenient but not very important. Sum and substance. Fear and worry makes us attract the very things we dread. The fear habit impairs health, shortens life, and paralyzes efficiency. Doubt and fear means failure. Failure feed is this optimist. Fear a pessimist. Faith it is perfect antidote. For while fear sees only the darkness and the shadows, faith sees the silver lining, the sun behind the cloud. Fear looks down and expects the worst. Faith looks up and anticipates the best. Fear pessimistic, faith is optimistic. Fear always predicts failure, faith predicts success. Eliminate from the thinking all false beliefs, biases, and super sensations. Order your mind and thoughts to accept wholeheartedly that what you are seeking already exists in the infinite mind, and all you must do is identify it mentally and emotionally, and it will come to pass. Too many people fear for us their own minds. They let their minds be governed by their opinions of their bosses or strong minded coworkers on the job. Do not let this happen to you. Build up the power of your subconscious mind to resist domination by others and assert your ability to control your own destiny. You are much greater than any material failure that can come to you. No matter what disappointments or failures come to you, you are a superior to them. Never lose your equanimity. Turning your dreams into a strategic dream. Dream big. Peace.